As the trial begins, Tommy's personal hate towards Rusty becomes more apparent. We watch as Kyle tries to get rid of his bike and evidence. Meanwhile, Raymond's head is on the verge of exploding, as it is time for us to discuss and break down episode 5 titled Pre-Game. Spoilers ahead. We open this week's episode with showing the last shot of Rusty looking down at Brian as he eventually gets off of him and stops punching him and heads inside. We gotta talk about Rusty's face in this scene because right now that's a pretty frightening image to look at, but the true question is, was this just pent up anger with everything that's going on with his trial and the affair and everything happening? Or is this something that Rusty likes to hide and that's just true deep down anger that he keeps suppressed? As Barbara tries to understand what just happened, we see Rusty telling her who this man Brian was. As we see her telling him,
Rusty, you could have killed him.
As Rusty is certain he won't go to the police. Now, I think he has that level of confidence and knows that Brian won't go to the police because there seems to be something going on with Brian's past and his connection to Bunny Davis' case, and it will most likely come up if the police start asking questions to why he was at Rusty's house. We watch as Tommy is reviewing the photos taken by Michael and notices a person on a bike, and he takes note of that and he doesn't realize that it's Kyle. Now, I might be looking into this a little bit too much, but while he was watching the videos and the photos of Rusty and Carolyn kissing and being together, was it me or did Tommy seem to be jealous, or more importantly, him sticking on the one photo of Carolyn wearing shorts from behind, which by the way, first and foremost, is kind of a weird photo for Michael to take of his mom. But as I digress, now I mentioned this a few videos ago and I still can't shake the feeling that it's going to probably be revealed that Tommy was secretly in love with Carolyn, and we possibly get a glimpse of that in this very episode a little bit later. As Eugenia comes in to talk to Tommy about her being the first on the witness stand, as he continues to insinuate that maybe her and Rusty may have been in a relationship. As Tommy continues to use his new position of power, as he tells her, what Tommy basically said to her, in my opinion, was, you either side with us or you're gonna probably lose your job. Which, if this is the case, if I was her, next time he calls me into his office, I would probably secretly record the conversation and maybe use that conversation in court to show that he's taking this very personal and he's 100% crossing the line. Now, to call this next scene random as hell is an understatement, but it kind of still serves the story. As we watch Raymond getting coffee in the office and damn near poops his pants by letting out a wet one, as we see him having a mini heart attack or a mini stroke, and out of nowhere his head explodes, which to me looked like a scene straight out of Scanners, but we find out that he's having another nightmare. Now, how does this connect to the overall story? Well, like his last nightmare, he tells his wife about it, which, by the way, this is one of the reasons I like Raymond as a character, because in most of movies and shows like this, we see a lot of couples don't share information with one another, but I love the fact that he talks to his wife and he shares even his nightmares. I really appreciate that level of detail to this character, but we see Raymond continues to stand his ground of Rusty being innocent as we watch his wife tells him,
doesn't matter. You argue for the defense now, anyway.
Now, I secretly think that Raymond's wife just wants Rusty to be guilty so that Barbara could sit with the bartender and not feel guilty about it. Now, this might be a wild theory, but is it weird to think that Raymond's nightmares are actually a form of guilt? It's crazy to me because what if he's somehow involved in Carolyn's murder? There has to be some connection between Rusty and Raymond being the only two characters who have had nightmares on this show. Now, to go back and talk a little bit about these dreams that we're seeing happen with Rusty, but also and particularly with Raymond, it's said that if you dream about yourself dying, it could point to you being a worrier, but also there could be a transition in your life that is very major, and there are a ton of other meanings behind what it means for you to die in your dreams. One of them also being that you're in a position that you want to end a particular relationship, but also I found one particularly very interesting. It could also mean that you're actively afraid to lose people closest to you. So I definitely believe that his mind-blowing dream might have many important meanings for Raymond and how he really may feel about Rusty's case, and maybe he'll step away from representing him some point later down the road. Now, we find Rusty is keeping tabs on Brian as he's outside of his house watching him leave his home, and he's not just there to observe, but instead he tries to break into his house until he gets caught by Brian. Now, serious question, but what the hell was Rusty doing there in the first place? Like, was he looking for evidence? Was he looking for Brian's DNA? Like, seriously, what was his game plan? Now, Rusty claims that he was just there to talk to Brian, which he's clearly lying, but we don't see the actual conversation take place between the two characters, but we do find out that Brian is coming in to talk to Rusty, Raymond, and Maya. But before we learn that, we watch Raymond ask Maya about Rusty's latest idea to having Liam being the lead suspect. As Rusty tells them about Carolyn hiding the evidence in the Bunny Davis case and how their involvement in Carolyn's death isn't far-fetched. As Maya brings up the fact that the Bunny Davis case isn't their concern, as we see Raymond adds in the fact that Liam is most likely lying about killing Carolyn in order to get some type of cred with his fellow inmates. As we cut to get in the conversation with Barbara and Jaden as she asks her mom if her dad had actually committed this murder, as she tells her daughter,
Your dad has a lot of rage inside him, but not this.
I really wonder what rage has she seen from Rusty in the past, besides what happened with Brian, and if it will ever be explored at some point in this season. Was the moment that we got last week about them not talking their relationship have to do with his rage and anger? Now, this is a scene I've been waiting to happen as we get a flashback between Tommy and Carolyn. As the conversation is about him talking to her, as you'll notice that Carolyn uses the word stalking, as he's heard that she didn't want him to work with her, as she tries to not make it awkward by explaining what she meant by that. Now, it's been brought to my attention in the comments section of my last video that maybe Carolyn was referring to Tommy when Michael said that his mom was afraid of someone from work. Again, was Tommy upset or jealous of the relationship between Rusty and Carolyn, and he might have actually killed Carolyn or had her killed? And going back to that conversation, what exactly was it that made Carolyn not want to work with him? Again, I don't think Tommy's going around murdering people. He might not actually be the actual killer or had her be killed, but I just have this feeling that there is going to be some type of big reveal or some type of big secret that we're going to learn about Mr. Tommy. As Nico has a discussion with Tommy about Liam's possible involvement of this case, as Tommy insists that he's in jail and the chances of him being involved are slim to none, and they should spend all their time and energy and focus on remaining on Rusty. Look at this scene in kind of two different ways in my opinion. Yes, Liam connection can be a dead end, but not to investigate it more seems to be short-sighted from Tommy in my mind, and it points towards him wanting Rusty to be the guilty person regardless of the actual truth and the outcome. I really can't shake a wild theory that what if Carolyn had something on Tommy and his ties to Liam and Brian? Now, we see Barbara is taking a break for what's going on with Rusty in his case as she decides to call Clifton, as she almost stops herself, but he tells her on the phone,
Was it who said, we regret the ones we don't make?
As we see them together as his art plays in the background as we watch her and Clifton kiss. Now, for me personally, yes, we're all human. We will all and have all done terrible things and mistakes. But when it comes to marriage, I feel like if you need to seek attention or affection or attraction outside of your marriage, no matter if there are pets or kids involved, I know divorce can be expensive and a lot, but in my opinion, you should just leave this relationship if you have to seek those things. My next question regarding Barbara is this her doing this in spite of Rusty and his affair and everything going on with the case, or was this just bound to happen after hearing that they had a bad spot in their marriage and is probably leading towards them having a divorce somewhere down the road? Now, I don't want to ignore the scene where Barbara is saying that she shouldn't kiss him, but she wants to kiss him. Now, connecting that to the idea of Carolyn, she knew that she probably shouldn't be confronting this woman or even further wanting to harm this woman or kill this woman, but she wanted to. As we watch Maya taking a lead in the conversation with Brian, now I'm wondering to myself, why doesn't Brian have a lawyer representing him during this conversation, regardless if he's guilty or innocent? But again, I'm thinking that he doesn't want to have any outside connection with police or lawyers because it'll probably go back to him having an affair with a prostitute, and it seems to be that he doesn't want his wife or family to know anything about that. Now, we hear Brian's reasons on why he indulged in relations with prostitutes, and Bunny Davis being one of them, as he claims he's never seen Liam before after being shown his picture. Let me know in the comments below, do you all believe this man that he didn't know Liam, that he had relations with Bunny but had nothing to do with her murder? As we see Tommy on his soapbox as the media questions him about the possible plea deal that may or may not be in the works. Now, Tommy initially answers with a politically correct response, but then he takes this opportunity to share his mind not only on the case, but also goes on to share his thoughts about people with power in the country getting away with anything. This angle to put Rusty in that grouping and having the public opinion side with him on the subject of him being the rich and getting away with anything and being unpunished is a pretty crazy angle, but it might actually work. Now, Nico confronts Tommy about his outburst because, again, Tommy is making this case against Rusty look more and more like a personal vendetta. As it's becoming clear as day that Tommy is mentally unstable for this case, and more importantly, it was at this point that I believe Nico realized that he made a terrible decision by putting Tommy in this position, especially after saying that he felt that he's not getting support from Nico. As we can see, the power has truly gone to Tommy's head, as he says,
I'm the good guy in all this. Potential jurors, they need to know it, and better yet, they need to feel it. They need to understand this. Something is so because Tommy Malto says it's so.
Now, it was nice to get a small little sweet moment in the Savage house before Rusty leaves and finds something of importance, but I can't help but to just kind of feel bad for these kids, knowing that their parents are clearly looking for intimacy elsewhere, but they're putting on these smiling faces as almost they're doing like a stage act to make sure that they're seeming to look good in front of the kids. Rusty heads outside. He notices yet another family member tampering with evidence as Kyle has put his bike, seen in the photos taken by Michael, in the trash can. As Rusty comes in to ask who put the bike in the trash can, we see Kyle tells his dad his reasons why.
It is trash. I mean, the gears are shot and the chain keeps coming loose, so I just...
Man, I tell you, this family definitely knows how to make themselves look guilty, don't they? As we watch, Rusty takes the bike out of the trash and puts it in the back of his trunk. Now, for my Apple TV Plus fans out there, didn't this moment kind of remind you all of Defending Jacob, which is a phenomenal show, but now is actually being called Defending Kyle? Now, we don't see what Rusty actually does with the bike. Is it assumed that he kept it in his back of his trunk, or did he ultimately dispose of it later that day? We see Barbara talking to her therapist about kissing Clifton, and we see her therapist labels this as being romantic. Now, Barbara isn't necessarily ashamed of what happened, as she tells her therapist that she felt relieved and she felt desired, and she also feels as though that her daughter would be so proud of her. As she tells her therapist that she feels as though her daughter might judge her for staying in this relationship with her dad. Okay, I don't think the show would spend this much time on showing us Barbara's point of view of what it's like to be cheated on for no reason. Now, I can see them planting the seeds in a scene like this to show that even if Rusty's proven to be innocent, she's probably gonna leave him after that and just have a divorce happen before she can just live her life. But I can also see them showing us her subplot to give her more and more reasons of why she may have harmed or maybe even killed Carolyn, and having us being played with the sympathy card. See Rusty setting up this rooftop meeting with Raymond to discuss his chances of winning this case. Rusty is strongly in the belief that they need a credible alternative for him, but we see Raymond disagrees, as Raymond asks him if Barbara thinks that he actually did it, as he tells him that his wife does think he committed the crime. Now, Raymond prepares Rusty for his idea to actually have Barbara testify on their behalf to simply prove his innocence for Rusty and sending a message to the jury but everyone else that might think that he's guilty. As Rusty is left to think about what Raymond just told him, we see Raymond leaves him with some advice.
It goes without saying, but I'm going to offer it all the same between now and the trial. Let's not be beating anybody else up.
As we get a montage of the trial being less than 24 hours away, and we see all the characters getting prepared for what's to come. As we watch Rusty and his family walking outside with cameras in their face as it's raining, it's almost a symbol of like this calm before the big storm, as we see them in the truck holding hands and headed to court. As the trial has officially begun, we see Tommy's opening statement as he talks about Carolyn to the jury. As Tommy speaks to his personal connection to this case and claims that he's not like other prosecutors in this position because he actually cares about the outcome because he actually knew the victim. As he tells the jury that they should be looking for the truth and only the truth during this case, as he shows them a picture of Carolyn's dead body followed by her son. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all, as much as Tommy has been a prick, and I definitely think he has his own skeletons in his closet, I gotta admit, his opening statements were pretty damn good, and Rusty knows that as well. Now, this episode didn't provide us with a ton of new evidence, similar to what happened a couple episodes ago, and it seems to be a pattern that this show has going for itself. As one episode, we get some new evidence or a new suspect, and in the very next episode, we don't get any new evidence, but instead, the show starts to focus on particular characters or a particular character and explores the idea giving us as an audience a reason of why they may be the killer. Now, this week's episode really leaned into the jealousy angle of Tommy and his disdain towards Rusty and him taking it personal that Carolyn didn't want to work with him. We also saw Barbara take a bite out of the forbidden fruit, but also, as she calls it, it was just a kiss. We saw Kyle taking a page from his mother, and instead of cleaning his bike more, he just decided to get rid of it altogether. But again, what exactly did Rusty do with that bike? Now, overall, I thought it was a decent episode, nothing special, but I would imagine next week we'll play into what I was saying earlier about us getting a character-focused episode here, and then next week getting some type of major evidence and having some type of situation going on with the trial officially beginning. I bet that next week's going to probably be a great episode. Before wrapping up, again, I just want to put it on the table as far as my theories. Right now, the Tommy thing is really sticking on to me, this whole jealousy angle, him may having known Bunny Davis and might know who Brian is and blaming it on Brian and having Liam being the one take the fall. Not entirely sure how the theory works, but I can see Tommy getting involved with Bunny Davis physically after getting denied from Carolyn, and something may have had happened to her and Brian saw this, and maybe we can see Tommy making Brian get Liam involved and blaming the murder on Liam and going back to Bunny Davis, and maybe Carolyn finding that out. Speaking of Carolyn, her hiding the evidence, what was her reasons? Because by all accounts, we see Rusty makes her out to be a saint. Minus her cheating, or not cheating I should say, but her having an affair with a married man with a family, she seamlessly seems to be a good person for the most part. Again, we all make mistakes, but neither here nor there, what were Carolyn's reasons for hiding the evidence? We theorize that, again, Tommy's involvement. He knew that she had something against him and he was going to be brought out to the light. He was involved in the Bunny Davis case, but he tampered with the evidence. He made it seem that it was Liam that killed her, but it was all a cover-up. And then long and behold, Tommy wanted to close off loose ends, and he might have had Brian hire someone to kill Carolyn, or Tommy might have did it himself. And last but not least, my crazy, wild-ass theory is, what about Raymond? There's this theme in the show about infidelity, whether it's Rusty, Brian, and now Barbara. So what if Raymond had an affair with Carolyn and she was gonna let it out? Or maybe he was jealous about her having this new relationship with Rusty and maybe he got jealous and killed her. Again, wild ass theories, but hey, at this point, everyone seems to be a suspect. Now, one more thing before wrapping up, as we have next week's episode and synopsis being revealed, as it seems to be that it's pointing towards something unexpected happening. As the synopsis reads, the trial begins, startling events inside the courtroom threaten to derail the proceedings. Now, based on this thumbnail that I have on the screen now, I think it's safe to say that someone is called to the stand and that someone is either attacked by someone or they might have some type of medical condition. It's going to be the end of this week's video. I want to thank you all for watching my breakdown. If you have been enjoying yourself and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, but also share your thoughts, your theories, and your predictions and your deeper meanings that you all took away from this episode. I love reading you all's theories, and also consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel. You all stay safe, you all are awesome, and I catch you all on the next breakdown.